Greetings, everyone. Today I am once again joined by my brother, TericDragon, and we'd like to discuss a topic that occurs rather frequently among fans.
One of the most prominent and well-known venues for fan-generated content in both the furry and brony fandoms is fanfiction. These are fan-written stories which create what-if type scenarios based around a core canon of storylines. Some of the time, fanfiction can also be referred to as headcanon. No, headcanon. Good enough.
I myself have come up with quite a few headcanons, basically what-if concepts that would connect varying elements and characters throughout MLP. But even though I like coming up with theories and possibilities, they are still a far cry from a complete story. Whereas a headcanon can one day be turned into a fanfiction with proper character development and backgrounds, a headcanon by itself would not be considered a fanfiction because it is only an outline for a potential story.
Many different types of fanfiction exist, ranging from fans simply inserting their own characters or even their own selves into the main story world, to genre-bending tales, where the main characters are inserted into completely different worlds and times, allowing the author to explore how these characters would react, adapt, and even thrive in these new settings. In a sense, the whole story of Equestria Girls could be considered an elaborate fanfiction, were it not for the fact that it was created by the MLP writers themselves.
Much like the wide range of types of fanfiction, there is also a wide range of fans who write them. Some authors are serious, professional, and very detailed, producing great works that could possibly stand on their own as published novels. At the other end of the spectrum are those who have never written stories at all, but find the inspiration in the fandom to produce their own works of fiction. Probably the most prominent common factor among fanfiction stories is that they most often get started as small projects shared among groups of friends, who in turn encourage the author and continue writing and sharing it with progressively larger groups of fans.
We have seen a number of great examples of fanfiction produced not just within the brony and furry communities, but in other fandoms as well.
From a comic artist that is both a brony and a furry, we have a story called The Night the Magic Died. This is an ambitious work of fan fiction in that it is not only a written work but is also a visual story. In a nutshell, it addresses a what-if scenario of two creatures entering Equestria from another dimension, and the efforts of each to prove that the other is dangerous and evil, finally culminating in a surprise twist of events. It is an engaging, well-written, and enjoyable story that is currently still a work in progress.
In a different fandom, I discovered a story called Harry Potter and the Methods of Rationality. This is also a very well-written fanfiction, retelling the Harry Potter story by having him grow up not in a neglectful, abusive home, but instead in a home where Petunia married a college professor, and Harry grew up well-loved and well-educated before ever finding out about Hogwarts. At its core, the story explores how deep-rooted scientific reasoning collides with the world of fantasy and magic as Harry struggles to reconcile the two. Unfortunately, the quality of fanfiction varies wildly as well. While we've cited some examples of high-quality, engaging stories, there is an amount of fanfiction out there that is mediocre at best, and an even larger number that is simply bad. What makes an otherwise decent story into something that most readers can't get through?
For a lot of first-time fiction writers, there is a great temptation to somehow insert themselves into their stories. The terms Mary Sue or Gary Stu refer to an idealized character modeled after the author. Now, by itself, this is not necessarily a bad thing. The problem is that a great many writers want to insert themselves into the story as a form of wish fulfillment, to allow themselves to live in the story world and interact with their favorite characters. All too often, the author falls into portraying a character that is too perfect or too well suited for the challenge that the story becomes predictable and uninteresting. A Mary Sue story focuses so much on the author's character that the story itself suffers.
Even though most fanfiction is not meant to be published and put on bookshelves, it is, however, meant to be shared and read. As a writer of several short works of fanfiction myself, I feel most accomplished when others read my stories and give their opinions as feedback. I believe that the vast majority of fanfiction writers feel the same way about their own work. So, it should be fairly obvious that good fanfiction is well written, using proper grammar and word mechanics, as well as having a believable plot and compelling characters. Any good story, not just fanfiction, should instill a suspension of disbelief in the reader, bringing his or her imagination into the story world. Grammar problems, incorrect punctuation, misspelled words, plot holes, confusing details, flat characters, and awkward sentence structure can destroy this magical link between the reader and the story, abruptly jarring them back to the real world. If a story can't maintain this suspension of disbelief, then it will also fail to hold the reader's attention.
Perhaps this is one reason why fanfictions often fail to keep my interest. There are a great many fanfictions out there which, after reading the first few paragraphs, clearly show themselves to be Mary Sue-type stories, or have so many instances of poor grammar and spelling that I can't even get into the story in the first place. Unfortunately, this results in some promising stories remaining relatively unread and unknown in the fandoms.
So what's to be done? There's already a glut of poorly written fanfiction out there. The brony and furry fandoms don't need any more of it. However, I'm sure there's a good number of fans out there who have great stories in them, tales that could add to the quality, richness, and diversity that already exists. So the question remains, how can aspiring writers separate their work from the boring and predictable and emerge as fine gems of fanfiction?
First off, pay attention in English class. Grammar and spelling is more important than you think. These are things that the reader will never notice if you do them well, but they won't be able to overlook them if you don't.
Second, plan out your story from start to finish before you write the first paragraph. You don't have to flesh out all the little details, but you should at least have an outline of the story setting, sequence of major events, climax, and overall story goal. These will be your guide as you write the story. If you start writing your story without them, you might as well take a long road trip without a map or a GPS.
Third, think about each of the protagonist, antagonists, and main supporting characters that will exist in your story. What kind of characters are they? What types of personalities do they have? Ask yourself, are they interesting to me? Would I want to get to know more about them? Or do they seem ordinary, predictable, or flat? Compelling characters are a major part of what makes a story fun and memorable.
Finally, ask yourself, why am I writing this story? Do I want to spin a tale of excitement, intrigue, adventure, or even romance? Would I expect to find a story like this on a bookshelf? Or is this simply a chance for me to explore a fantasy world or to insert my own character into that world? If your story falls more on the latter question, then you may want to re-examine your story.
As for myself, I actually have more fun putting together theories and headcanons rather than writing out a complete story. I can create the what-if scenarios that get others interested in hearing more, but I'd rather not have to go through writing dialogue, fleshing out character development and interactions, or putting deep emotions into words.
Hey, those things are actually pretty fun for me.
You don't really need to put yourself into writing a complete fan fiction just to get others to listen to your ideas, and perhaps your creativity will help to inspire the creativity of others.
That reminds me, Doc. Speaking of your headcanons, I had one issue with your rewrite of A Canterlot Wedding. I have to say I thought your rewrite made a lot more sense than the original episode, but there was one problem. When you had Twilight crash into the Statue of Discord, you said that Applejack would see it visibly cracking.
Yes, I thought that would lead in nicely to the following season's episode, Keep Calm and Flutter On, giving Celestia a compelling reason to have Fluttershy work with Discord.
Perhaps. But that's what didn't make sense to me. In The Return of Harmony, when we first saw the statue cracking from the fillies arguing, Discord was freed from his prison within hours, if not minutes. With the kind of cracking you describe in your rewrite, I would say that Discord would be released in 5 minutes tops. Certainly much earlier than the point where Cadence and Shining Armor work together to banish Chrysalis.
What would be your point then?
Essentially, it would have led to both Discord and Chrysalis being loose in Canterlot at the same time. Cry havoc, and let loose the dogs of war!
As interesting a meeting as that might be, I didn't want to try and cram that into the Canterlot Wedding story changes I came up with. But I did want to create more of a reason for Celestia to decide that Discord should be reformed. And at the same time, I can imagine that the cracks in the statue were happening because the element of magic had been knocked out. The rest of the elements had been separated from each other, and the elements of harmony were weakening overall. Once Twilight had regained consciousness, though, with the help of Luna, the cracks would stop forming. How's that for an explanation?
Well, it's your headcanon. You're welcome to go anywhere you want with it. I still don't buy it, though.
Don't look now, but it seems to me that you are delving deeper into the world of MLP.
Wait, never! No shrubberies! You'll never take me alive!
And let the movie quoting begin. For all of you fanfiction writers and readers out there, we'd like to hear your opinions on this topic. And for all of those who are looking to start writing your own fanfiction, we hope that our advice has been helpful. Until next time, I am Dr. Wolf, and I look forward to hearing from you.